We're going to delve into the Maillard reaction today and unlock the secret to super browning and super good flavor. So let's start with what is the Maillard reaction. So when you think about the Maillard reaction, you're looking at the browning on steaks, right, or fish or any sort of meat that has browning or crust on it. So when you go to a steakhouse and you get a good steak, okay, let me pull up a picture. I'll have one. Forgot about this. So let's look at what the Maillard reaction looks like. That's usually something that produces a crust, such as this here, or any of these really. Notice some differences that we'll get into. Um, this one isn't so great. It's not as brown as maybe this one or this one, which might not be as brown as this one or this one. So we're going to get into what these differences are and how you could get the best Maillard reaction. So why would you want a good Maillard reaction? So a good Maillard reaction is great for that crust, first of all, which that browning has a good texture, not the browning, but the crust has a good texture and the browning has a good color. Okay, and these are both aspects that make good food. And with the Maillard reaction, you're able to emphasize both. Good texture is a great mouthfeel. When you bite into a steak, it's not all just chewy. It has a sort of crust to it, and that's nice as well. For flavor, this browning provides new flavors that weren't there before. So what happens is you get a sugar. I'm gonna draw sugar somehow. Okay, this is our sugar. This is not how you draw sugar in chemical speak, but I'll put S for sugar. Okay, S for sugar. I don't even know if this is in the video or not. S for sugar, and we also have amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. So a bunch of these put together make a protein. And so simply, when these two combine, we get, um, when these two combine, we get a, a good crust. Different other, various other compounds. I'm not going to name them all. It's too much to remember, and it's not that important to get a good crust or a good Maillard reaction. So, how does it work? Like this: sugars, amino acids put together under high heat. And for high heat, what we're looking at is something like 300 Fahrenheit. Okay. Anything lower than that, it's not going to give that great. This is when the reaction starts to occur. And this is why you're not going to get a good reaction with a moist heat technique for cooking, like what's a moist heat technique? Boiling, simmering, braising. Okay, these all use moist heat as some sort of liquid, and you're not going to get a good crust or Maillard reaction with that because water can only heat up to 212. That's the boiling point of water. And since it needs to be at 300, okay, you're not going to get that with water. It's not even going to come close. So this is why if you looked at, I don't know, like boiled steak, for instance, if I can spell, boiled steak, right? This does not look the same. In some cases, it doesn't look as appetizing. This is not a boiled steak, for instance. These were all used with um, moist heat. And in order to get a good crust, you want a dry heat that goes up to 300 degrees. Okay. And so if we know that moisture is the enemy, it doesn't make good for good a Maillard reaction. We want to spread out. Let's say this is, let me make this smaller. let's say our steak, we draw a steak. Don't judge my drawing skills. I cook, not draw. This is a steak. Maybe this is the fat cap right here. I don't know. And you have all this meat. Okay. So a good steak has crust all over. You don't want browning here. Maybe some browning here. And this brown spot. So let's look up uneven browning. Even browning of steak. This is very even browning, actually. For example, what does uneven browning look like? Something like this. So you see how there are bits here, here, and then there are also bits that look like that boiled steak, right? There's no browning here. We're missing out on flavor. You're only going to get that good browning and that good taste and texture and color in these areas. So how do we avoid this? Because this is actually a common problem for cooking steaks, and you really want it to look something like, that's not a great example, but more like this, more like this. This is immense, great flavor, great crust, great color. So what can we do? We know that moisture is the enemy. How do we draw out moisture from the surface? We'll simply dry it off, okay? When you're getting ready to put your meat in the pan, you want to dry it with some paper towels so there's no moisture on the outside to prevent extra browning. Also salt it. Salting will draw out extra moisture, okay? So lots of comparisons. I probably should add these pictures to this canvas anyway. Um, so with salt, you're going to draw out moisture from the meat or whatever it is you're trying to brown. And that will prevent moisture from interrupting your reaction. Simple as that. This is why oftentimes you'll see somebody salt a steak and leave it sitting for about 5 minutes, not too long. It doesn't need to be forever, but or dry brining, for instance. Let's say you cover a chicken breast in salt, leave it in the fridge for a few hours. Those are two different completely time frames, but the method is slightly different, but the point is the same. Draw out moisture, get great browning. So apart from salting and drying off your meat, what else can we do? Well, crank the heat of your pan, okay? So if you know that 300 degrees is what's going to make your crust of your meat or the Maillard reaction in general, I'm just going to stick with the term crust for simplicity. How can we get a great crust? Like I said, high heat. Also, use of oil, okay? Oil is a form of dry heat. It's not a moist heat. You might think it's a moist heat because it's a liquid, but it's really not. It's fat. And it is something that carries heat. So imagine a bowl, or we'll say a fryer, because a fryer is like a big bowl, and it's filled with oil, okay? All of this surrounding is, imagine this is heat. This is not what heat looks like. Heat is just energy, okay? All of this oil is charged with heat or energy or however you want to say it, and it evenly produces browning. That's why fried foods have a brown color to them, usually, because heat is applied evenly throughout. Okay, so if this is the pan and your steak is not as flat, this is the pan, and your steak is maybe this shape. I don't know. I don't know why, but maybe it's not all in contact with the surface of the pan. This is not good. Why? Because this part right here, let's switch the lid. This part right here, that's not going to come in contact with the pan. Therefore, it is probably just getting steamed from the drippings of the pan or the meat falling into the pan and steaming and coming up and hitting the meat. Like we know, that's not enough to make good browning in spots like this. So dry it, salt it, get good coverage, weigh it down. So for example, what you could do is put a weight on top of it, any sort of weight. This now looks like a bean with a hat, but it's a weight, okay? Weigh it down. And that will ensure that instead, what it looks like, This is again our pan. It looks more like this now, a very rectangular shaped steak. No, it's an evenly pressed steak that is sitting on the pan with as much surface contact as possible, with as little moisture as possible, and that is what gives us more even coating. Obviously, it's more even than my drawing, but like I said, I could not draw. I do my best, so bear with me. Okay, this is how you cover most of the steak. It's also why you see people baste a steak. So basting can sometimes add that crust, not as much as direct heat because the butter might not get up to that same temp that you need for the reaction. However, I'm trying to see if I can find I saw one basting. Anyway, so what else could you do? Another way to eliminate moisture from your cut of meat, say your steak or your chicken or your fish or whatever, is to use flour. So here is an example. I think that picture is over here. Yeah, doesn't matter. Here's an example of what happens when you use flour. This is with flour. This is without flour. Why might that help? So we think about flour, okay, as these little particles, not this line, whatever. And as water comes in contact with them, these particles absorb the water and the water goes away. No more water. That's good. Why is it good? Because as water goes away, there's less steaming and more browning. Okay? So you get more of something like this, and it's a slight difference, but notice how maybe this one is good. Stovetop with flour, stovetop. Notice the difference. This one is obviously more brown and crusted than this one. This one has a little more uneven spots. It's a small difference. You don't need a lot. Not by any means do you need a lot. I would say, if this is your cut of meat, again, just using rectangles for ease, because I'm not Picasso. This is your meat. You want your flour to be kind of like this smaller. I think that's smaller. You just want like the thinnest layer, okay? The point is to capture the water as it escapes. Um, and that's how you get, or that's a few different methods of how you can get great browning on your cut of meat through the Maillard reaction. Gosh, I don't know if you've ever tried to write the mouse, but it's hard. Anyway, Maillard reaction. Sugar plus amino acids at 300 degrees Fahrenheit produce different chemicals, reductones, if you will. It also produces water. Water is a byproduct of the reaction. That's why it's important that you have high heat so it evaporates immediately and it's not hanging around, preventing steaming. Also, oil. Oil will get rid of that water so fast. Don't mix oil and water intentionally. This is my warning to you now. Do not do it. That's the easiest way to start a fire. Or small, very tiny explosion. Also, apply even heat, okay? Use a weight. Press it down. Dry it off. Don't use cut of meats that look like this, okay? Get ones that look more like this, that have a flat bottom. More on top of this. High heat, okay? Don't use a cold pan. I know you can get the same result starting from a low start, okay? But it's more ideal to use more heat immediately. This is why you see people preheating a pan, then adding oil, let your oil heat up, and then add your meat, okay? All to maximize the amount of time you have at this point, at this temperature, which is also 100 Celsius. I do know that. Gosh. Writing with a mouse is atrocious, but please bear with me. That is the Maillard reaction. Let this enhance what it is you cook. Okay, you don't need to be cooking boring chicken. Okay, because I bet your chicken looks like this. If you're watching this video, this is probably what your chicken looks like. It needs to go from this to something more like this. This is good browning. Chore marks generally are considered to me good browning from Maillard reaction. Also, this, okay, this is flavor. Go from this to this. And that's it. That's how you get more flavor for no extra cost, no extra time, just different technique. And that is the Maillard reaction. Take it.